Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing today? Just it. Just give us a couple seconds while I sit up. See if y'all gonna come party with us today. Here we go. How you doing, Miss Alicia? Hope you had a Merry Christmas. Hope the family's doing well. Been praying for you guys. Just clock set. Three. All right. Just gonna give about one more minute. Let everybody get settled in. We'll go ahead and get started. I am excited about getting back into this lesson tonight. My voice is back. If I don't know if y'all remember, watched the last video, my voice was it was barely hanging on, but it's back full strength. Got my meat, do, re, mi, fa, la, ti, do. She's back full strength, ready to get it in tonight. I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas yesterday. It was pretty awesome that Christmas landed on Sunday. Got to go to church on Jesus' birthday. Pretty awesome. So I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. And hope y'all are ready to get here and get in this word tonight. So I appreciate everybody being here. Of course, I'm John Stewart on behalf of Lost Sheep Ministries, sponsored by Revelation Baptist Church. Here to bring y'all the lesson tonight. Of course, it's a continuation of the lesson from last week. And on last week, like I said, I was kind of feeling a little down a little bit, and my voice was kind of squeaking out on me. So last week was more of an introduction, but I hope y'all still able to really get some help out of the lesson and what we went over last week. And of course, tonight we're going to actually get in. And I went over a couple of the points as well, but tonight we definitely going to get dive into the meat of the lesson and why we need to have wisdom when we're making the decisions in our lives, because it really does affect the lives of everyone around us, the decision that we make, and we're really going to see that here tonight. I'm going to give some of this high quality H2O. It's one of my Christmas presents, Faith Over Fear. It's probably look weird because it's backwards on the thing, but that's one thing my kids got me for Christmas, so pretty cool. And again, I hope y'all had a wonderful Christmas as well. So if you got your Bibles, go ahead and open up. We're going to be back in 1 Samuel chapter 8 again. And man, I just, I was thinking about it when I was going over this lesson tonight, because this is definitely going to be another part. I'm not going to get through it all tonight neither. And I was just thinking about, like, man, I'd have never expected the book of Samuel to be as deep as it is and to be so much in there. We've spent quite a bit of time in this book of Samuel. I think we've been here at least 3 months, if not more than that. And we're on chapter 8. So, but it just shows you, man, how deep the word is. That's why it's so important to get in that word. Because even with what I'm going over, we're still just only scratching the surface. And I'm pretty sure there's so much more that can be pulled out of these lessons, out of these chapters that I'm not even covering. So, no, that's why I always advise everybody to make sure you get into your word. It's very important. So, but again, we're going to be in 1 Samuel chapter 8. And of course, the lesson is a continuation of the lesson last week. If you watched the lesson last week, the title of the lesson was Choices and the Importance of Wisdom in Decision Making. And I'm just going to kind of read, like I said, last week was more of the introduction to the lesson, and I got into the first couple of points. But tonight we're going to really get into the meat of the lesson. So I'm just going to read back through my notes, the introduction that I went over last week. So I started off and I told you, from the time we open our eyes, the Lord opens our eyes in the morning, and to the time we close them to rest at night, we're making decisions throughout the whole entire day. And those choices, and we're making decisions, we're making choices, and those choices determine how our day is going to go, and it might even determine how the day of others is going to go around us. Some choices are big choices, some choices are small choices, and I just gave some examples there. But I talked about how important it is, whether you're making big choices or small choices, to still use wisdom in all choices. Big choices, small choices, use wisdom in all choices. Because I gave you some example of how sometimes just making a little small, we figure out what we think to be small choices can end up turning into big choices. Like choosing which way you're going to take to work. You might be able to avoid an accident because of it, or you might end up being in an accident because of it. Choosing what time you'll go to the store, before work or after work. You can end up in the middle of a robbery because of the time you chose to go to the store, or even choosing what clothes you wore that day. So all the choices, even when they're small choices, we think they're just little arbitrary choices that we make on a daily basis, they can end up becoming big choices. And I just gave an example. There's a lot of people that made what we thought were small choices that's not here this day because of the choices. And I talked about how I watched the Buddy Holly story, and he chose to get on that plane and end up crashing, and he ended up losing his life. And the same with Aaliyah, which was a famous R&B singer back in the day. So that's why I say it's so important to use wisdom whenever you're making decisions, because you never know how these choices you're making are going to turn out. You never know how these choices you're making are going to affect other people as well. And I kind of had a note here saying the reason wisdom is imperative in decision making is because every decision you make affect everyone. The world teaches us to be selfish. If it feels good to you, then do it. It's not going to affect anyone else but you. But again, that's a lie. That's something we talked about. And I talked about how there's decisions that we're making here in America that's affecting people on the other side of the world. Then I gave you some examples of Sodom and Gomorrah, how the men chose to make the decisions they making, and they end up getting the whole land destroyed. We looked at a city in Geba over in the Book of Judgments, where the men from the tribe of Benjamin had decided to try to rape this man and end up raping his wife to death. And because of that, the whole nation of Benjamin was almost wiped out. We talked about how Pharaoh was making decisions, and even though he was the leader, and all the people of Israel weren't making the same decision as Pharaoh was, he was making those decisions, but they were suffering because of it, because they were suffering the wrath of God because of the decisions and the choices that he was making. We also asked and that was kind of a bad thing. And I also said that when wisdom is used in decision making, lives and souls can be saved. So when wisdom is not used, lives and souls can be destroyed. But when wisdom is used, lives and souls can be saved. And then I kind of gave an example of how Joseph chose to stay faithful when he was sold as a slave to Egypt, and he ended up being able to save his whole family and the whole nation of Israel because he chose to stay faithful. We saw how when the people in the previous lessons chose to turn their heart back to God, they was able to get the victory because of it. We also talked about, I gave an example how I chose to go to my aunt's funeral last weekend, and because of it, I ended up being able to lead 12 people to the Lord. So we just talked about, that's why it's important to use wisdom in decision making, because when wisdom is applied, good things can happen, and when wisdom is not applied, bad things can happen. And then I talked about where do you get wisdom from? That's also a choice you have to make. You have to choose that you want wisdom, because wisdom comes from God. The source of wisdom is God, and the only way you're going to get that wisdom is by choosing to have a close relationship with the Lord, because the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So then I talked about, if you want I mentioned that if you want wisdom, then you have to choose to have a close relationship with God. That's a decision you have to make every day. Even when you're making your daily decision, you have the choice you have to make a choice to put aside time to read your Bible every day. You have to choose to put aside time to pray every day. You have to choose to capitalize on moments to tell others about the Lord every day. And it's actually going to come up again tonight. You have to choose if you're going to spend time with God, listening with others, listen to godly truths. And these are the type of decisions and choices you have to make to be able to obtain wisdom. And then once you obtain the wisdom, you also have to choose to use that wisdom in your daily decision making as well. And then I talked about how if the world as a whole, if we was to all to just have wisdom and was to choose to all turn our hearts back to God and have a relationship with Jesus, then all the trials and tribulations of this world would disappear, because we'd be able to use the wisdom that God gave us, because we have a close relationship with him, to alleviate all these problems that we're going through. And then I talked about how we don't, because we don't have all our trials and tribulations. We're not able to get rid of them because so often we choose to go our own way instead of going the way that God has for us to go. So, and then I just talked about, I ended by saying over the next couple of weeks, which is look like going to be at least 3 weeks, we're going to look at how the Israelites had the option to choose peace and prosperity, but they chose death and despair. And we're gonna act, like I said, we're gonna get into some of the decisions that they made tonight to see what I was talking about there. They had the opportunity to choose peace and prosperity, but they end up choosing death and despair. And we're gonna see because of the choices they made that future generations are gonna suffer because of it. So then that was the rest of that was kind of quick review of the quick review of the introduction. So then I forgot to turn my sound off, so I apologize if my phone get the buzzing and stuff while I'm preaching. I usually try to turn my ringer off, and I forgot to do it. So then the next line, it says, then we got into the actual lesson, and like I said, we covered the first 4 points last week. Point number 1 was you have to choose your leaders wisely. And again, we see that's important because, especially like with our government, we choose our leaders, and then they make choices, decisions as far as like laws and rules and regulations that governs our life. So if we don't choose our leaders wisely, then we're not going to have a wise nation, and we're going to end up on a path that goes to destruction. So you got to make sure you choose your leaders wisely. And we're going to kind of see that tonight as well, because the leaders of the Israelites are going to come to Samuel, and they're going to make a decision that the rest of the nation of Israel is going to be affected by. So you got to make sure you have choose your leaders wisely, and you got to make sure you're choosing wise leaders. You want the right people leading your life, leading this country, but definitely in your life. Number 2, we talked about last week. The point number 2 was you have to choose to accept or reject the wisdom that you receive. The wisdom, God gives us wisdom all the time. A lot of people don't read the Bible because they don't want the wisdom that's in their Bible, because their Bible going to tell them to stop doing certain things or to start doing certain things, and they don't want that wisdom. So, not only do you have to find the wisdom, you got to find a place to get the wisdom. Not only you got to hear the wisdom, but you got to choose if you're going to accept the wisdom and then apply that wisdom to your life. And I kind of gave you some examples about me learning. I had learned a hard lesson myself of learning to listen to older people because of a situation that I was in. And I also kind of use the example of my boys. They went out to the world and got their own place, but they didn't do it the way I tried to teach them to do it. And they did try to do it on their own, and they realized that had they listened to me, they would have turned out a lot better. So again, you not only have to choose to accept wisdom, not to choose wisdom, you have to choose to accept the wisdom or reject the wisdom that you've been given. And again, if we get to it, that might come up again tonight as well. It depends on how deep we get into the lesson tonight. Number 3 from last week, you have to choose what's going to take priority in your life. Will you choose the things of God or the things of this world? And we saw how, again, Samuel, in the first example, I'm sorry, y'all, my nose is itching for some reason. Must be going to kiss a fool later on. So we saw in the first, Samuel chose to make his sons the judges over Israel because of the simple fact they were his sons. And I'm pretty sure he raised them right and he thought they would do the right thing. But they chose to reject the wisdom that their father had taught them over the years and went their own way. And they also chose to, for money, they chose money because it says, for they were greedy for money. So they perverted justice, they accepted bribes and perverted justice because they chose money and the things of this world over doing things the way God wanted them to be done. And then number 4 from last week, you also have to choose righteousness. That's not something that just happens. It's not, people don't wake up just righteous and things of that nature. You have to choose. You have to choose if you're going to be righteous. You got to choose every day that you're going to take the high road, or you're going to let somebody get under your skin and make you get into your flesh, so to speak. That's choices that you have to make every day. So righteousness don't just happen. It's some work that has to be done, and you have to make the decisions and the choices that you're going to do that work. So those are all things. That we talked about last week. The first 4 points, like I said, and it was just more of the introduction and really just getting into the meat of the lesson. So tonight we're going to get into the meat of the lesson. So we're going to we left off in verse 3. So we only made it through the first 3 verses of the chapter. So tonight when we start off, we're going to start off in verse 4. So with that being said, that's my review from the week before, and I'm going to go ahead and jump into this lesson for tonight. I'm praying jump to the lesson. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for watching over us. Thank you so much for this weekend where we got to celebrate your birth, Lord. And and I always talk, especially with in the circle I'm in, I deal with a lot of people and people that are theologians and preachers and stuff like that. And some of them want to get super spiritual and be like, oh, it's a pagan holiday and you weren't really born that day. And I'm well aware of those things. But just like I said in my Facebook post, I'm just happy that we still have a day that we're willing to celebrate that you were born, and we're willing to acknowledge that you were born. It might not be the same day, but you were born. You did come out in the sin earth, and I thank you for that. Thank you for letting us get to celebrate. Thank you for letting me get to spend time with my family and friends, and had a couple of days off. I was actually off today as well, so that was a blessing. Got to work on my lesson a little bit more. But I just thank you for all that you do for us. Thank you for all those that's here tonight, Lord, and I pray they had a good Christmas as well, and was able to spend some good time with their family as well. And I just pray that you just be with us tonight. Let us, now that the holiday's over, let us get back focused in your word, Lord, and get back focused on the things that we need to do so we can make the right choices we need to make, so we can get where you need us to be to serve your purpose and your will with our lives. I ask you just send your spirit down upon me as I bring this lesson tonight, so I may bring out these truths from this chapter. There's some wonderful truths in here, and I pray that I'm able to do them justice to help others build a relationship with you. And I also ask you to send your spirit down upon the hearts of all those that are joining here tonight, whether they're going to watch it live or watch it later on, and just get their hearts and minds ready to receive this wisdom. Because again, they have to make the choice if they want to receive it or not. And I pray you get their hearts and minds ready to receive this wisdom, so they may be able to use it and make better choices, so that they may also be able to do the things that you will have for them to do. We just thank you so much for all you've done and given. Thank you for your blessings, and thank you for giving us the wisdom we need to make the choice to be here in your word tonight. And we love you and thank you as you use this time so it can be productive for the actively build your kingdom. And again, just use me and my ministry members to do the work that you have for us to do. We love you and thank you for all you've done and given. We say this prayer in your wonderful Son, Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so sorry about that constant like whistling. That's my ringtone with my text. And I was thinking like the one night I forget to cut my ringtone off, and there are people on. See, hold on one sec. See, I might be able to still do it. I might. Yeah, I can. Yep, I did. There we go. All right, yeah, I got it turned off, so we shouldn't have to hear that anymore. So again, if you got your Bibles, we're gonna be in 1 Samuel chapter 8. We're gonna start off on verse 4 of our first point for tonight. And of course, as always, I always like to let people know, if you're the first time you ever watching this video, I am a King James Version believer. I read the King James Version. That's why I do all my work out of King James. But this is the Lost Sheep Ministry. It's for people that's maybe uneducated or just don't have that close relationship with the Lord just yet. And people say, well, if you want to understand the Bible, the Spirit should tell you. But guess what? You want to have the Spirit, you don't have that close relationship with the Lord. So I always like to let people know. That's why I'm reading out the New Living Translation, and I pray that y'all understand that. But I do believe in the King James Version, but I'm reading out the New Living Translation so people can understand what's being said. And if y'all watch this video, y'all know I already talked long enough, so I don't have to talk extra to explain everything that's being said. So that's why I read out the New Living Translation. But if I do see something in the King James Version, they may be misinterpreted or just I don't like the interpretation of it, then I read out the King James. But I am a King James believer, but I will be reading out of the New Living Translation tonight. So if you're following along and you're wondering why what I'm saying is not matching up with what you're saying, that's why. But other than that, let's go ahead and jump into this. So again, we see some choices that's being made by Samuel. We see some choices that's being made by his sons, decided not to follow the path that their father has put them on. And like I said, we're going to really get into the meat of it tonight and see why it's so important when you use wisdom in your decision making. We're going to see how the choices you make can affect the choices of others. And in this situation, is going to affect the choice of the decisions of a nation. Is going to make some decisions based off these choices that these young men made, and the decision that this nation is going to make is going to take them in the wrong direction and take them away from the Lord. So right there at the end, it said, Samuel grew old It says, as Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons to be judges over Israel. Joel and Abijah, his oldest sons, held court in Beersheba. But they were not like their father, for they were greedy for money, and they accepted bribes and perverted justice. And I also know that I didn't catch this last week. He said his oldest sons. So which means he probably had some more sons as well. The fact that they distinguished that those were his two oldest sons, and they might have been better fit for the job. But these are the ones they chose, and he chose them, and they got the position, but they chose not to do the position the way they were supposed to. So because of that, now watch what's going to happen. So let's go down to verse 4. The Lord tells us this. He says, so finally, so again, you got these two sons. They were scoundrels. They wasn't like their father. They rejected the lessons their father had given them, the wisdom that their father had given them over the years. And they decided they were going to do things their own way, and they were going to come up and make a come up for themselves, use their position to put themselves in a good position. So in verse 4, it says, finally, the leaders of Israel met at Ramah to discuss the matter with Samuel. Look, they told him, you are now old, and your sons are not like you. Give us a king like all the other nations have. So that's right there. That's a very important statement. You got to understand what they're telling Samuel is, we no longer want to serve under God. Because of the decisions that your sons are making, because of the things that they're doing, because of the things they're doing as our judge, they supposed to be our leaders, and they're out here making these bad decisions. They're perverting justice. They're getting bribes. They're stealing from people. Because of these decisions that they're making, and they're supposed to be our leaders, we don't want to be under God anymore. So number 5 is this. This is one of the most important ones of this lesson. I got another one. I mean, all of them are important, but this is one you really have to understand because the world teaches us different. So you really have to understand this. Number 5 is this. Matter of fact, there's going to be 2 points come out of that little verse right there. Verse 4 and 5 is going to, I got 2 points out of that. And number 5 is going to be this though. You have to realize that your choices affect the choices of others. You have to realize that this is not, I'm just going to live my life and do what I want to, however feel good. And I talked about in the intro, whatever feels good to me, I'm going to do it. You have to realize that everything you do affect others in your world, whether close to you or away from you. You know, there's people that, and I talked about in the introduction, there's people in the world that you have no relationship, no ties to at all. And the decision that you're making are affecting them. You know, and I kind of use examples, like people that love the iPhones. From what I heard, and again, I don't know this, factually, but I read about it and I heard a lot about it. You know, they like the factories that make these phones, it's like children in these factories make these phones, and some of the factories are so bad, the working conditions so bad that people actually are committing suicide. They rather commit suicide than go and be subjected to the work that they're doing because of these phones. And I think it's the iPhone, the one I was reading on, but it could be any cell phone because we decided we got to have a phone. Everybody got to have a phone, and not only have a phone, you got to get a new one the newest one that come out every year. You know what I'm saying? So they got the demand for these phones, and all these factories that make these phones, the working conditions so bad that people, I know I was reading this one article, and this is something I did read myself. They said it was so bad, the suicide rate was so bad, it was so many people jumping off the roof that they had to put nets around the building to keep people from committing suicide because it was so bad, all because I made a decision that I had to have me a phone. So you got to understand the choices that you make affect the choices of others. And so we see here, because his sons chose the world, they influenced the people to choose the world as well. Because that's what they said. Because notice what they said. They said, your sons are not like you. So because your sons, you was a good godly man. You was a great leader. You led us to victory. Things have been good under your reign. But your sons are not like you. I'm sorry, y'all. My nose is itching like crazy. He said, but your sons are not like you because they're greedy for money. So it says, so give us a king like all the other nations have. In other words, they want to be like the world. See, the nation of Israel, and we're going to get into it in the next paragraph, but the way God has set up the nation of Israel, he was their king. God was their king, and he gave them judges, which was basically preachers. So they were supposed to be following the preachers. The judges were godly men. They were people that had close relationships with the Lord. So they was godly men, and they were supposed to lead the people in the ways of the Lord. That's what they supposed to do. That's why Samuel was the first one that was able to lead them back to victory, because he was the first truly godly man that had came along in quite some time. Y'all remember from the previous lessons, I had told y'all it had been some generations since they had even heard a word from the Lord. Matter of fact, it had been so long that when Samuel was called, he didn't even know who it was. He thought it was Eli calling him. God was calling them, and he was constantly running back to Eli. It had been that long because they had turned away from the Lord, because their leaders had turned them away from the Lord. So now we got these leaders here coming and saying, we want to be like everybody else. We want to be like the world. We don't want to follow God anymore. We want to be like the world. And you have to understand that. You have to understand that when you make bad choices, especially if you're in a leadership position, that's something I talk to my kids about all the time, and they're like, no, because sometimes like, man, why you so, why you so in such a mood, kind of thing. And it's because, man, it's a lot of pressure being a parent. You know what I'm saying? That's honestly one of the main things you can see, the main examples that you can use to see how important. And most of the people that watch these are parents that I know of. The ones that I know of watch. Some people watch, I don't even know, but I know a lot of people that watch these are parents and grandparents and things like that. And you can see that's a prime example, because you're able to see how the decision you made in your life has influenced the decisions or the position that your kids are into right now. Parenting is a very, because I've noticed, since I've been, they always talk about the cycle, the vicious cycle. And breaking the cycle, especially like in neighborhoods like where I'm from. A lot of kids end up doing drugs because their parents did drugs. A lot of kids end up, a lot of these guys end up in and out of jail, in drug dealing because their dads was in and out of jail doing drug dealing. We get a lot of women that end up in and out of abusive relationship because they saw their mom in and out of abusive relationship. It is the perfect example of what I'm talking about, the way your decisions influence others. And you see right here, we got these guys. These guys were supposed to be the spiritual leaders. They was Samuel. Samuel was the spiritual leader of Israel. And he's taught his sons everything he knows so they can take over and be the spiritual leaders. But guess what? They rejected that wisdom, just like we talk about. I have no doubt, seeing Samuel's character, seeing the way that Samuel was, I have no doubt that Samuel actually, taught his boys what they need to know. He gave them the wisdom that they needed to lead the people in the right direction. I have no doubt about that. But those boys rejected that wisdom because they wanted the world. And because they wanted the world, guess what? The people wanted the world. See, because we got to understand, especially when you take it, like I said, a leadership position, or we take on this mantle as being a Christian. That's something, we're quick to throw that out. Oh, I'm a Christian. We're quick to throw that out there. But you got to understand what comes along with that. When you take on that mantle of being a Christian or telling people you're a Christian, or, you're following Jesus Christ, then you have to be careful. Because once you put that out there, everything you do is a reflection of Jesus Christ. So if you're saying you're a Christian and yet you living like the world, then people, especially to a non-believer or somebody that's on the fence, what you're going to do, you're going to end up being a bad influence on them and make them not even want to be with you. If he's with Jesus, if he's following Jesus and he's living like that, or she's living like that, why would I want that? So you cannot understand. Some of my pastors say all the time, and something he said to church all the time, he said, to some people, you might not think that you are a good Christian. You might think like, well, I'm a terrible person, I'm a terrible Christian anyway. But to some people in your world, you're the best Christian they know. You're the best Christian. So a lot of times you won't even realize it, but they looking into you for clues as far as how they should be acting. They looking for you on clues on the things that they should be doing. So if you're supposed to be a Christian, in their eyes, you're the most faithful person they know. You're the Christian they know. You're the example of what it means to be a Christian, and you out here living like the world, then guess what? They're going to end up living like the world because they're following your example. And you got to understand, especially when you're in a leadership position. That's why I said one of my first points, you got to choose your leaders wisely. Because when you're in a leadership position, everything you do is just going to trickle down and everybody's going to follow you. And we see here these boys had this position. They were supposed to be the judges of Israel. They were supposed to be the one that carry the mantle, that carry the legacy of their father on into the future, lead the people in the right direction. But guess what they doing? They out here perverting justice. They out here taking money. They chose the world. And because they chose the world, guess what? The nation of Israel wants to choose the world. You got to understand, they had God as their king. He was their king. He was the one. Gave their, again, supposed to be good, faithful men that guide them to where they need to be, but he was their king. You know, and now they come saying we no longer want God to be our king. Now they didn't come straight out and say we didn't want God to be our king, but they said we want a king like all the other nations. So with them saying that we want a king like all the other nations, they're essentially saying that we don't want God to be our king. And again, it's going to actually come out in the next paragraph that he's saying that. But you got to understand, excuse me, you know, we got to get away from this selfish attitude. I'm just going to do what I want to do. I'm going to do that. Especially with us Christians, I'm going to serve God. I can't tell you how many times I talk to people and they're like, oh, I got my own thing with God. I got my own way of serving God, you know, and that's cool because we do have to have, each person got to work out their own salvation. That's not saying you got to work to get saved. It's just saying you got to work on your relationship, and everybody had a relationship with God. But at the same time, God gives us instructions on how he wants the relationship should be structured. He gives us instruction. That's what the Bible is for. Basic instruction before leaving earth. He gives us the structure. He gives us the guidance that we need so we can have a good, successful relationship with him. So we can do the things that he would have for us to do so we can benefit the way we need to benefit. He gives us the way to do that. But we have to accept it. And a lot of times we don't accept that. And again, that's why the world is in the situation it's in now. That's why the world is going the way it's in now, because we have rejected the wisdom and the guidance that the Lord has given us. We've rejected that. And because we rejected that, guess what? The world rejects it as well. When we look at what's going on in our world right now, it's not, and y'all have heard me say this before, it's not because there's so many bad people doing bad. It's not enough good people doing good. But more importantly, there's not enough Christian people living and truly walking the Christian way. And because of that, they're leading people away from the Lord instead of bringing people to the Lord. You know, there was a statement made in and this is something I heard. Again, I don't know. I didn't research it anything. But it's a statement I heard a preacher talking about it. And he said, I think his name is, was it a Buddhist guy? It was one of those, it wasn't Confucius. I think it was one of the Buddha, what is this guy? I can't think his name right now, but he was a real big, religious figure. I think it was, I don't want to say, it wasn't Buddha, of course. Man, who was this guy's name? I'm gonna think of it later. But he was a big influence over a nation, and I want to say it was an Indian nation, not Indian like we think of here, like actual Indian people overseas with the red dots or whatnot. And they asked him one time why. No, they were talking about Christianity, and they asked him why would he not want to be a Christian. And it's bothering me. I can't remember. I had his name right before I was getting ready to do this lesson. I can't remember who was his name. I apologize. But they asked this guy, they said, why do you not want to be a Christian? And he said, actually, I would love to be a Christian. He said, but the reason why I'm not a Christian is because of other Christians. Because he saw the behavior of all those people that claim to be Christians. You know, that they say they Christian, but they lives and their actions don't show that they truly are. The choices that they make don't show that they truly are a Christian to their heart. You see what I'm saying? So because of that, this man who was had much influence. I can't believe I'm having drawn a blank on his name, and I'll probably think about it toward the end of the lesson. But this man that they could have had influence and influenced the whole people to come to Jesus Christ, he wouldn't do it because of the way other Christians act. You know, I was this is another story my pastor told me. My pastor, he's done construction work. You know, he's done spent a lot of time doing construction work, and he was telling me about it was this Jewish guy that he met, and this Jewish guy was into homosexuality and all kind of stuff, and you know he tried to witness to the guy, and he said he wouldn't do it, and he said he asked him why. He said because this Jewish guy was rich, he had a lot of properties, so he had a lot of contractors that he would bring in to work on his properties. And he said every single time he said the reason why he didn't want to be a Christian, he said would have never accepted Jesus Christ. He said because every single time I've used a contractor and they give me a business card and it had that fish on the back, which you know it's a symbol of Christianity. They call this I think it's the ectus. I can't remember. I might be pronouncing that wrong. But y'all seen the cars with the fish, and it's supposed to be representative, you know what I'm saying, of being a Christian. He said the Jewish guy told him, said every single time I received one of those cards, the person that gave me that card was the worst person ever to deal with. They were scoundrels. They didn't do the work they said they were going to do. They often stole money from me. He said, so I want to deal with, he said, because all those people, everybody that's giving me a car and claiming to be a Christian were some of the worst people that I ever had to deal with in my business. So you got to see, so when you claim to be a Christian, when you, especially if you're in a leadership position, a pastor or something of that nature, like me as a minister, I have to be careful with the decisions that I make. I had to be mindful of the decisions I made. It was just like when Paul was talking one time, he was talking about, eating food that offered to idols. And he said, look, he said, I know that idols are fake gods. I know that. So I know it don't matter if I eat food that's been offered to an idol, because I know they're fake. They're not real. As long as I bless the food, it's fine. He said, but because of, he said basically, but because of who I am, because of my position in the church, if me eating a food that's offered to the idol is going to make somebody else have a guilty conscience about it, then I won't do it for their sake. For the sake of my brother, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to lead them astray, because I have this freedom. I know that it's fake. I know that it's okay to do, but this other brother, I don't want him to have a guilty conscience for doing it, because he don't believe that it's okay to eat the food from idol. I know it's okay, but he don't believe it is. And if I eat it and he eat it because I ate it, then I've led him astray. So I said, so if, even though I know it's okay to eat food offered to an idol, I'm not going to do it just a simple fact because I don't want to guide nobody else astray. See, that's the kind of mindset you got to have. He's making choices based on the influence that he's able to have on the choices that others are going to make. And that's what we have to understand. Every time we make a choice, especially, again, if you're a leadership, if you're a leader, whether you're in a leadership position or not, but definitely as a parent as well, we have to be mindful of our choices that we make, because the people that's following us, the people that coming along behind us, our choices is going to influence their choices. So if we make bad choices, then they're going to make bad choices. And just like I was telling you earlier, most people that smoke cigarettes because their parents always smoke cigarettes around them. A lot of people that drink, they drink because their parents drink. People that smoke weed, they smoke weed because their parents smoke weed. A lot of time, majority of the time, whatever you did as a parent, your children are going to do the same thing. Now, there's some that break the cycle. I know I was one that broke the cycle as well. There's some that break the cycle and can do that. I by all means, I really should be dead or in jail right now, or in prison right now, somewhere strung out on drugs, because that's what I was surrounded by. Everybody I was around was on drugs, sold drugs, or whatever. So I should be doing the same thing, but I made different choices. And I made the choice. And I actually, honestly, if you know my testimony, I did kind of go that way for a little bit to the Lord popped me upside my head and brought me back into the fold. And that's why I had the Lost Sheep Ministry, because I know of others that strayed their way because of their environment. So again, I did stray their way, but the Lord, just by the grace of God, he gave me enough wisdom that when he called me to preach, that I answered that call. But it's some people, they don't get the luxury of doing it. They don't have the wisdom to do that. So they continue on a destructive path, and they're on a destructive path because their parents put them on a destructive path their own because of the choices their parents made. So we have to understand that it's very important for us to understand every decision, every choice that we make. Number 5, you have to realize the choices that your choices affect the choices of others. And again, we're seeing that here because of Samuel's kids. The boys that he put in charge, that he chose to be the leaders of Israel, because they was making bad decisions and turned their hearts toward the world and away from God. Now the whole nation of Israel want to also make bad decisions and turn their heart away from the Lord. So number 5, you have to realize your choices affect the choices of others. Everything you do is not just, I'm going to do what I want to do, and as long as it feels good to me, you only live once, I'm going to do what I want. You got to realize there's somebody in your world that looks up to you. There's somebody in your world that you're leading in a direction. Whether it's a good direction or a bad direction, it's all based upon the choices that you're making. So number 5, you have to realize that your choices affect the choices of others. But also, I see something else in that verse, and it's something that we should understand. This is a concept that we should know as well for ourselves. Because he said, He said, find the leaders of Medarama to discuss the matter with Samuel. Look, they told him, you are now old and your sons are not like you. Give us a king like all the other nations have. So we see that because of the choices that Samuel's sons is making, now these people are making choices. What up, Ann? I'm glad you snuck in here on me, man. I appreciate you being here. Hope everything is good. Hope you had a good Christmas. So again, we see because Samuel's sons have chose to turn their heart away from God. Now the nation is also choosing to turn their heart away from God. So again, though I say you got to be careful of your choices, but number 6 is this. You have to choose who will be the head of your life, God or the world. That's a choice that you should make on your own. You should stop letting the actions of others influence that choice, make that choice for you. Because that's what's happened because of what Samuel's sons are doing. Because the Samuel's sons have turned their heart away from God. Now the leaders of the nation of Israel has turned their heart away from God. See, their choice is based on the choice of others. Stop doing that. Stop letting the actions of others influence your choice. Stop letting the actions of others and the things that others do take you away from God. Because that's what happens a lot of times. There's so many times y'all know I talk about soul winning all the time. You know, I talk about soul winning all the time. And there's so many times I've talked to people that tell me they used to go to church, but they no longer go to church because this happened, because the pastor did this, because this happened in church. That was this deacon in the church. I remember this one time I was talking to a guy, and he said, a couple of times, these are all from soul winning. One time I was talking to a guy, he said he wasn't saved. And he said the reason why he wasn't saved, because, so he said he used to look up to his granddad. His granddad, he used to go to church all the time. Granddad made him go to church. His granddad was a deacon in the church and things of that nature. And he said, but when they was at church, he was all, Father God and all this kind of stuff. But when he was at home, said his granddad was drinking. He was abusive. Used to beat him for no reason. And he said one time he just had a question. He was asking something he didn't really understand in the Bible. And it wasn't in a disrespectful manner. He was like, man, I don't understand why this is like this. And he said when he asked his grandfather that, his grandfather beat him. His grandfather beat him. So you see, his grandfather, and because of the choices that his grandfather made to not truly be the man of God that he claimed he was, this man here decided that he was going to leave God. You can't do that. Over in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 1, this is something that Paul said. He said, be ye followers of me, even as I am, be ye followers of me, even as I also am of Christ. In other words, follow me as I follow Christ. And that's what you should be following. Too many times we focus on following men. Too many times we focus on following a man. So if the man go a way that's not of Christ, then all of a sudden, instead of just being like, okay, I'm not going to follow him anymore, I'm going to find somebody else to follow, or I'm going to get in the word and be a leader myself, we just give up on God altogether. And that's, like I said, I've talked to so many people that is not in church today because of something they've seen somebody that was in church or somebody that they looked up to that was in church do the wrong thing. And that's the problem. And the reason why is because we're following that man instead of following Christ. Because he said, again, be ye followers of me, even as I am also of Christ. So even with this Lost Sheep ministry, I love this Lost Sheep ministry. I thank the Lord for saving my soul, calling me to do this work that I've been doing. I have a pretty regular base. I know usually I get about 100 views. I don't know how many people actually watch the whole videos or just clicking on it or whatever, but I get on average about 100 views a week. So it's people that's following me because I'm bringing this word of God. So as long as I'm still bringing these truths and I'm bringing y'all these Bible truths and I'm not taking the Bible and switching up and everything, yes, continue to follow me. Because if you do, I'm going to lead you toward the Lord. But if I'm still human, I make mistakes. There might be things that I do that are not God-like. So when y'all see me do those things, don't just give up on God completely. Oh, well, Brother John, faithful as Brother John was, and now he's out here in these streets doing these things. Well, if he gonna do that, then I just don't want nothing to do with God no more. And that's foolish to make that your decisions based off of what somebody else do. Because again, it's if you look at when they talked about Moses was so faithful to God that it said God talked to him face to face. He's the only one that talked to God face to face. But yet, what is he called? What was he called? Man of God. And you gotta understand what's the first line in there? Man. As long as I'm a man, as long as we're men, as long as we're in these fleshly bodies, we still face the same. I'm a preacher. I love the Lord with all my heart. I preach. Y'all know I get on here and preach 2-3 hours. You know what I'm saying? I'm in my Bible every day. I'm soul winning all the time. I do all this stuff, but I'm still tempted by the things of this world, the pleasure of the sin, because the pleasure of sin is good for a season. You know, now I ask God every day for strength not to give in to those temptations. I ask God every day for the guidance that lead me out of situation that put me so I be tempted. I pray for that every day. But there's no guarantee, and I've been doing good so far. Knock on wood. But ain't no guarantee I'm gonna be able to stay faithful forever. Every once in a while, life hits a man, he gets down, and in a moment of weakness, he do something he's not supposed to do. That's what happened with David. Because look at David. It said that God, when they talked about David, he said David was a man after my own heart. God himself said that about David. He said he was a man after my own heart. But yet David still did what? You know what I'm saying? One day out taking a nap. What's going on, Angela? I appreciate you being here. He was out one day taking a nap. You know, instead of being at war with his men, he was at the castle taking a nap, walked out on the roof and saw this fine thing, buck naked, taking a bath. And what he did, he ended up taking her in. Then he ended up getting her pregnant. And to cover up the pregnancy, he first tried to get a husband to come back and sleep with her. But a husband was what David should have been. A husband was so faithful that he was like, man, it ain't no way I'm going to go sleep in my bed and have sex with my wife when my men are out on the field dying. He was faithful. He was what David should have been. So that didn't work. So then David thought, well, maybe I can get him drunk here and go do it. And he got drunk and still didn't go do it. So what did David do? And finally, because he knew he had to cover up this pregnancy, so what did he do? Had the man killed. You see what I'm saying? Why? Because this was, again, a man that God said was after his own heart, but yet he still made that mistake. And his family suffered because of that choice he made. So you got to understand, yes, it's good. I love everybody that's here. I appreciate my cuz being here. Anthony, long time Lost Sheep ministry member. Miss Alicia been here since I met her a few months ago, been here every single week, unless there's something going on with the babies. I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate y'all following me. But yet, make sure you follow me because I'm following Christ. Don't follow me just because you like the way I talk or you like my voice or you think I'm handsome. Don't follow me. I'm praying that y'all are only following me because you're realizing and you see and the Spirit's touching your heart and telling you that He's telling you the truth. And I pray that's the only reason why y'all are following me. Because if I get away from that truth, I expect y'all to get away from me, but don't get away from the Lord. And that's my point. See, but because Samuel's sons were making bad decisions, they had turned toward the world. Again, what did they say? Yeah, you are not old and your sons are not like you. So in other words, they don't have the Spirit of God in their heart like you have. So give us a king like all the other nations have. So because his sons was making these bad decisions and they had turned their heart away from God, now they want to turn their heart away from God. Well, you know what I'm saying? You was following God, so we was following you because you were following God, but your sons are not following God, so now we don't no longer want to follow God. No, don't do that. Like I said, I love y'all follow me, but if I follow, I pray I don't. I'm not saying I don't, because I'm pretty sure David never thought he'd do what he did. I pray I'll never go astray. I pray I always, my heart will always be given into spreading this word of God. I pray that. But if I do stray away, please, y'all, don't get out of the church. Don't stop going to church. Don't get out of worshiping the Lord because I went astray. You know what I'm saying? Don't let my decision I made influence the decision you make, whether you want to continue to have a close relationship with the Lord or not. Like I said, it's so many people I've talked to that is not in the church right now today because of some decision somebody else in their family made. Matter of fact, one of the guys I've talked to y'all about is an atheist guy. I've been working with this guy probably 6-7 years now, you know what I'm saying, building up a friendship, rapport, and I got to the point now where, he loved to see me coming. Like, man, I go ahead, and I don't go over and I always talk to him about God, I try to throw it in there, but sometimes I go and talk to him, see how he's doing. He was one of the victims of the flood that happened in our town a couple of years, a year or so ago, so I go and check on him from time to time, and we've built up a friendship. I got his phone number, he got my phone number, but when I finally, he told me he's an atheist, and I don't believe in God and all that. So one day, whenever somebody tell me they're atheist, I always ask them why. What happened? What happened that made you go in this direction? And I was talking to him, and he told me, he said, I had a stepdad. One of my stepdad was a preacher. Said he was a preacher in the church, And again, just kind of like the other guy I was telling you about, I said he was a preacher in the church. When he was at church, he was all praise the Lord, and God, praise God, had his Bible and all that stuff. He said, but when he was at home, he was a drunk, and he beat on me and he beat on my mom. He said, because of that, I knew that couldn't be, if he was supposed to be a man of God, if this was a man of God, this is a representative of a man of God, then I don't want nothing to do with God. He said, so for his whole life, he's been an atheist because of the choice that somebody else has made. So again, so you see, that's why I got 2 points out of that. We see how you have to realize, like I said, number 5, you have to realize your choices affect the choices of others, but you also have to realize that you have to make the decision for yourself. Don't let what somebody else doing, don't let somebody else going astray make you go astray. And we've done that. We do that so much. So again, Paul said, "Be ye followers of me, even as I am also of Christ." So as long as y'all, like I said, y'all follow me, I appreciate y'all being here. But as long as I'm following Christ, keep following me. But the moment I go astray, keep following Christ. Just leave me alone. You see what I'm saying? Don't leave Jesus alone. Leave me alone. But it's too many times where the pastor go astray. So since the pastor go astray, I'm gonna go astray. And that's the wrong attitude to have. You got to make that choice for yourself. Don't let the actions of others make that choice for you. And again, it's so many times I've seen it happen. I can give y'all all kind of stories, but I want to move on to the next point because I want to get a few more points in tonight. But I can tell you how but again, a lot of the times when I talk to people and they say they're atheists or they used to go to church, but they don't no more, 9 times out of 10 is because they had a bad experience with somebody that they looked up to that was either in the church or in their family that was supposed to be, Christians. And because of these bad experiences, these bad choices that these supposed Christians made, it made them go out. It made them get away from the Lord. So again, number 6, you have to choose who will be the leader, head of your life, God or the world. Don't let the actions of others make that decision for you. Just because of the preacher go astray, you shouldn't go astray. You stay faithful. And like I said, either find somebody else to follow that is still on the path, or you get in the word and you be a leader yourself. But don't let the actions of others influence your action and get you out of your relationship with the Lord. So that's number 6. And also another one, another reference, is a reference back to number 1, also in that verse. So we got three different actions from this one little verse here. Well, these 2 little verses, 4 and 5. Another one, also something you see that's important, and it was point number 1. You have to choose your leaders wisely. Because the leader, if you think you see this, it says, the leaders of Israel met at Ramah and said to give us another king. So it's the leaders that's making this decision to turn away from God into the world, not the people. But the thing is, the people are going to follow. That's the thing. So the leaders were the one asking for the world, not the people, but the people will follow what the leaders do. So that's why you got to make sure you got the right leaders. Because even though the leaders are the one asking for the one that's asking to turn their back on the word, the one that's turning their back on the word, asking to get out of his relationship with God, yeah, they're the one, but they're the ones in authority, and therefore there's the one that the people are going to follow. They're going to be the ones that making the rules and the regulations, and that's one of the things I pray for all the time. I pray for the Lord to give all the people that He's putting authority over us. I always pray for Him to give them the wisdom to make the right rules and regulations that would allow us to continue to worship Him freely. I also ask Him to give them the wisdom to turn their hearts back to the people so they may lead the people in the right direction. And it's exactly for this reason right here. Because whichever direction the leader's going to go, the people are going to go. Whatever direction the leaders are going, that's why, again, you see our country and the state is in now. It was so far away from God because the people that we have in office are not godly people. They don't make their decisions based on godly wisdom, and therefore our country is in the situation it's in now. And we see the same thing happening here. It was the leaders that went and said, hey, it was the leaders that went and said, hey, we want a king. We want to be like the world. We want to be like everybody else. We no longer want to be the people that God intended us to be. We no longer want to be a people that's wholeheartedly content on following God. We want to be like the world, and we want to go find our own gods and make our own way. And it was the leaders that made that decision. But guess what? The people are going to follow. And we're going to see that as we get deeper into Samuel and the books of Kings and things of that nature, how this day here influenced the outcome of future generations. This day here, this decision, this choice that's being made by these leaders is going to influence the way the nation of Israel is going to function from here on out. To matter of fact, it's still being this decision still have an effect on the nation of Israel to this day because of this decision made right here. Because they decided they didn't want God to be their king anymore. They wanted the world. and the leaders is the one that made the decision. So that's a reference back to number one. I'm not going to re-preach that point, but that is a reference back to number one. You have to choose your leaders wisely, because the leaders are the ones asking for the world, but the people will be the ones that's going to follow what the leaders do. So that's the number. So that was number 5, number 6, and the reference back to number 1. So then watch for number 7. In verse 6 is going to give us point number 7. So in verse 6 he says, "Now Samuel was very upset with their request and went to the Lord for advice." And the reason why Samuel was upset, he had the right to be upset, because Samuel, the people, the leaders and the people, they didn't realize that what they was asking. They didn't realize what they was really saying. They didn't realize that they was turning their back on God, but he did. He understood the significance of this choice that they was about to make. He understood, and that's why he got upset. But you notice what happened when he got upset, and that's going to give us our next point. You notice what happened when he got upset. It says Samuel was very upset with their request, and he went to the Lord for advice. So he got upset, but he didn't get in his flesh. He went to the Lord. So that's going to be number 7. You have to choose wisdom. That's another decision that you have to make. You have to choose wisdom. No, every time you make a decision, there's always the worldly, fleshly decision, the fleshly option, and then there's the worldly option. You have to choose wisdom. You have to, the worldly, fleshly option, and then there's the godly, wise option. There's always 2 options. There's always 2 choices. Every time you make a choice, there's always 2 options. And you have to choose the one that you're going to follow. And you have to choose wisdom. You have to choose wisdom. And that's what Samuel chose to do with this situation. When he first heard, yes, he got upset. I'm pretty sure he wanted to get in his flesh. And I'm pretty sure he wanted to call down fire and be like, "Lord, burn these leaders up for coming and asking me giving me this stupid request." You know what I'm saying? They want the world. They don't want you no more. They want the world. I'm pretty sure he wanted to get in his flesh. But he was wise, and he chose wisdom instead. So he went to God. So what he did when that situation came up, again, bad situation, he got in his flesh, he was upset about it, but he went to God for advice instead of his worldly friends. And see, that's what a lot of ours do. That a lot of times we do. We go to God for it. We go to our worldly friends. Everybody, we all inherently know what we should and what we should be doing. We know. We have a good idea of what we should or should be doing. And we have some, I know y'all have been in this situation before. You've had some, and you know exactly what you need to do. You know exactly, you know what I'm saying, if messing with a certain person, you know you don't need to mess with that person. Or it might be to get involved with another person. You know exactly what to do, you know, that you shouldn't be involved with that other person. You know what needs to be done. But yet, what you do, you go talk to somebody about it. Go ask somebody about it, you know, and what you do. And the thing is, and that's wise, because that's what he did. But the thing is, what we often do, we'll go and ask somebody that we know is going to tell us what we want to hear. See what I'm saying? That's what we do. Instead of going and asking somebody that's going to tell us the truth, you know what I'm saying? A real friend is going to tell us the truth. We go and ask somebody that's going to tell us exactly what we want to hear. See, that's a lot of time what we do. That's why when you see a church that truly speaks the word of God and truly preach the word of God, 9 times out of 10, they're small churches. Again, you see my ministry, y'all know, and I'm wrong, you know, they tell me so. But when I'm on here, I feel I'm giving y'all the truth. I'm giving it to you. I'm not sugarcoated. I'm giving it to you exactly like the Lord is giving it to me. I'm giving you the truth. You know, whether your feelings get hurt or not, I'm going to give you the truth. You know, and my ministry is small. Like I said, I might get 100 views, and it ain't even no guarantee that out of 100 that people actually watch the video. It's just because if anybody clicks on it, it just, you know, reason another view. I don't know. It probably only 20 actually watch the videos. You know what I'm saying? Include you guys that's here with me now. You see what I'm saying? Because my ministry is small because I'm telling the truth. But you see these big old mega churches, these Joel Osteen churches and all these huge mega churches with thousands of people. Why? Because they're not going to tell the people the truth. So the people choose to go somewhere where they'll be lied to and misled instead of going somewhere where they'll get truth. You see what I'm saying? So you have to be careful with that because they don't want the wisdom. They want you to tell them what they want to hear. You know, I've had a couple of situations. It was funny over my time here. As a matter of fact, because y'all know, like I said, I used to live a bad life and I used to do the partying and hooking up with chicks and stuff like that. So I have a situation since I really become more dedicated to God and really trying to walk that righteous path and do the things that God wanted me to do. Now I had a couple of situations earlier before I got to where I'm at now, but it was earlier in my ministry, but I was, already working on getting my heart right with God, doing things the way God wanted me to do. And it happened twice. It happened to me twice, and then it happened since. It happened twice. But I had two friends of mine that I used to party with back in the day. You know what I'm saying? And I remember each time one of them came to me and it was like, man, they both at the time, they both had girls, steady girlfriends or whatever. They weren't married, but they had steady girlfriends, and women, they was with the girls they was with. They claimed they loved them. Like, this is my girl. This is who I want to be with, blah, blah, blah. So each time, both of them are really good friends of mine too. And one of them clicked in here a little minute ago. I don't know if he's still watching now. He might remember this story. But I never forget both of them the same situation. They came to me and like, hey man, I got this girl, got my girl, blah, 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 love her. But this situation has arisen where my girl is giving me permission to have a threesome. You know what I'm saying? Bring another girl into the equation. What you think I should do? And I'm pretty sure they was expecting me like, oh man, because back in the day I would have been like, oh man, go ahead and do that. Send me pictures. You know what I'm saying? Let me know how that went. Because back in the day, I was so ignorant, I was so away from God that I would have told him like, man, yeah, go ahead, man, have fun. You know what I'm saying? Send me pictures if you can. That's what I would have said back in the day. But now that I've gotten into the word, now that I've worked on my relationship with the Lord, now I realize the importance of the information I give them. You know what I'm saying? I could have easily told them what they wanted to hear because I knew what they wanted to hear. Matter of fact, when I told them, I said, look, man, as far as I'm concerned, man, go ahead, do your thing, have fun. I said, but there's some stuff you might want to consider before you do that. You know what I'm saying? I said, all right, you got your girl, right? Now, yeah, like, you really love this girl, right? And with both of them, it was like girls that I knew that, you know what I'm saying, that they was with and they really cared about because it was the first time they was in like really long relationship. I said, so if that's the case, why bring somebody in to your relationship? I said, because when you bring another person into your relationship, then guess what? Their relationship ain't going to be as strong as it was before. Even if your girl is agreeing to this. I said, man, there's so many, and I said, there's so many things that can happen that'll ruin your relationship. I said, once you introduce somebody else into your relationship, their relationship will never be the same, even if it was consensual. They're like, what do you mean? I said, I'll tell you what. I said, so you bring the girl in, right? I said, and us men and y'all women, forgive my language. I said, but you know how us men is. It's like we can love our girl all we want, but it ain't nothing like some new booty. You know what I'm saying? It's hard for any woman to compete with that. You know what I'm saying? When I've been with you 20, 30 times and I got this girl I ain't never been with, we always gonna show more interest toward that. That's why a lot of dudes get into situations and end up getting cheating and things because they chasing new booty. That's what happened. It's hard to compete with that. I said, so let's say your girl, she give you permission to do that, all right? And y'all bring the other girl in, and because this girl, she was scouting the girl, I said, y'all bring the other girls in. I said, so what's gonna happen if you start paying more attention to this new girl than your girl? Because it's bound to happen, because this is new. So you know what I'm saying, you already know what make your girl, get her off or whatever. Now you got to figure out this new chick, so you're going to have to spend a little bit more time with her. So what's going to happen when your girl gets jealous because of that? I said, or what's going to happen if you bring a new girl in and it turns out your girl is more into a girl than she is to you. Now you sitting there jealous. I said, think about this. All right, so let's say you do bring the girl in, everything go good, nothing happens, but then your girl be like, now that I'll let you bring another girl in, I want to bring another good dude in. What you gonna do then? You know what I'm saying? So they're like, man, I ain't never thought of that. I'm like, exactly, bro. I said, you got to think about all these elements. I said, once you start introducing other people to your relationship, that relationship never be the same. And if you want to keep this relationship, you really want to have a serious relationship with this girl, then I advise you against that. And you know what they said? Man, they ain't gonna ask you nothing. They ain't never gonna. Both of them said the same thing. They ain't gonna never ask you because they was expecting me. They thinking I was gonna be like, yeah. Because back in the day, I would have been like, man, yeah, go ahead, do that. Man, that sound like fun. Blah blah blah. I would have. I would have back in the day. But the new me, the new renewed heart, I understood that these boys was about to make a choice, and this choice can be a bad choice, and it can ruin something that they had, a good thing that they had. And so I just had to give them the warnings, which is one of my points I don't think we're going to give to, I think we should be able to get to it today. So I had to warn them of the path that they was on. Like, yes, man, this sound fun. It might work out. The pleasure of sin is good for a season, but in the end, it can really ruin this good thing that you already got. Do you really want to take that risk? You know what I'm saying? And I had to make them think about it. And see, that's what you're supposed to do. You have to choose wisdom. See, now they came to me thinking that I was going to tell them what they wanted to hear, but they end up getting wisdom instead. But a lot of times we do that. We'll go to somebody that's going to tell us what we want to hear instead of choosing to go get wisdom. And that's what Samuel did. He chose wisdom. He was upset. He knows that he was in his flesh. But again, instead of calling out to God and praying for fire to come down and burn them all up for asking this stupid question, what he did, he went to God and asked God, how should I handle this? He went to wisdom. You know, if you got a problem with your car, you got a problem with your car, go to a mechanic and ask the mechanic what he think. Don't go to a doctor and ask the doctor about your car. You know, I've seen this so many times in relationships get ruined over that. And men do it too, you know, but I see women do it more. You know, they'll be in a relationship with a guy and, you know, something going wrong where they want to improve the relationship, but instead of going to somebody else that's in a good, long lasting relationship, they go to their single friend. You know, if I'm like, me and my wife, we've been married for, this year will make 19 years we've been married because we got married back in 2004. So yeah, so it'll be 19 years this year. It'll be 19 years we've been married. So if we start having problems, I'm not going to go to my unmarried friend. We've been married the whole time, never been divorced, none of that. So if we start having some problems and I need some advice on how to fix my relationship, I'm not going to go to my single friends and ask them how to fix my marriage because they don't know. They don't have the wisdom to tell me how to fix my marriage because they've never been married. Or I'm not going to go to somebody that's been married and divorced 2 or 3 times and ask them how to fix my marriage because obviously they don't know because they've been divorced 2 or 3 times. If I want to go to someone that's going to help me fix my marriage, ask them how I can fix my marriage, I need to go to somebody that's been married at least somewhere close to 19 years, just like I've been married, or if not longer. You know what I'm saying? Like my pastor, matter of fact, we celebrate their anniversary this weekend. This past week at church, they've been married 29 years. So if I'm going to need some marriage advice on how to fix my marriage of 19 years, I'm going to go to the man. I'm going to go to my pastor because he's been married 29 years. So obviously he knows what works. So I'm going to go to him and ask him, hey, I got this issue going on. What can I do? Because I know he's going to have the wisdom that I need to make so I can succeed because he's already done it. And that's what we got to learn how to do. We got to choose wisdom. You know, if you in a relationship and in a long-term relationship, don't go to somebody that's never had a long-term relationship. There's not going to be any wisdom there for you. The wisdom that you need is not going to be there. Don't do that. Again, go to somebody that's had a relationship just as long as the relationship that you're in. Then you'll be able to truly get some wisdom there. So you got to understand that we have to choose wisdom. We choose, like I said, I'm trying to give you the wisdom and see how important choices are. You know, because if you go to the wrong person and get the wrong information from that person, then you're going to ruin that thing you have. You know what I'm saying? You go to the wrong person, again, you go to some single friend to get advice about your marriage, then guess what? You're going to probably end up single because they're going to give you some single wisdom. Now, if you're single and they single and you want some advice on dating and thing, then yeah, maybe that'll work. But you have to choose wisdom. Make sure, in other words, make sure when you in a situation and you need some wisdom, make sure the person that you're getting that wisdom from has the wisdom themselves. Make sure they have the wisdom themselves, especially when you're dealing with the things of God. Don't go to an atheist asking an atheist about the things of God. You know, I saw this joke the other day. I thought it was so cute. It was on Facebook, and it was like it said it was this little girl, and she was on a plane. And this guy sat down and beside her, and he was an atheist, proclaimed atheist or whatever. So I think the little girl was like reading the Bible or something like that. So the guy sit down and he told her, like, hey, you want to talk? I've heard that taking on a plane made the ride goes a lot faster or whatever. So would you mind having a conversation? And the little girl was like, sure. What do you want to talk about? He said, well, let's talk about how the fact that God is not real. So the little girl thought about it for a second. She said, okay. She said, well, let me ask you this first. She said, a horse, and again, this is a joke. I saw it on, but it's so applicable. He said, okay, a horse. She said, what is it? It was a horse, a deer. What's that? A horse, a deer, and a cow. So they all eat the exact same thing. They all eat grass. He said, but yet when a deer goes poop, it's in little pellets. when a cow goes poop, it's in these big, smooth, flat patties. And when the horse goes poop, it's in clumps. Why is that? So the atheist thought about it for a second. And, He looked at the girl, he said, I don't know. He said, exactly. He said, so why would I discuss the things of God with you when you don't know, well, no, they said the bad word, but when you don't know poop, basically. And I thought that was so hilarious, but it's so applicable. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we spend time discussing stuff with people that don't have no clue what they're talking about. They don't really know enough to give you the wisdom you need to make your decisions. So again, that's why it's important to have the right people in your world, and make sure, especially when you deal with things of God, get to somebody that truly serves the Lord. You know what I'm saying? Not somebody that say they do and then don't. Somebody that you can see, because you're like, well, how will I know? Jesus says in the Bible, he said you can know a tree by its fruit. You know, a good tree ain't gonna produce bad fruit, and a bad tree ain't gonna produce good fruit. So somebody, if you need somebody, some wisdom, and especially with the things of God, or in life, period, but especially with the things of God, then look at the fruit. Do the people have the fruit to show that they truly serve the Lord? Excuse me. Do they fruit show that they truly serve the Lord? Do they truth show that they really are following God? If so, take their advice. If not, get away from those people, because they're not going to guide you in the right direction. But when you need some wisdom, you have to choose that you're going to get the wisdom. Don't go to or like I said, you don't go to your world. He didn't go to his worldly friends. He didn't go, to his wife or anybody, even though his wife might be a spiritual one. They don't really talk about it, his wife at all. Originally, they don't mention his wife at all, but she might have been a godly woman, but he didn't even go to her. You know what I'm saying? Who did he went to? He went to God himself. He went to wisdom himself. He went to the very source of wisdom, because he knew he needed wisdom to handle this situation. So number 7, you have to choose wisdom. He went to God for advice, not his worldly friends. Make sure when you need wisdom, you go to somebody that truly has wisdom. Don't go to somebody that's going to just tell you what you want to hear, because if you do that, they're going to tell you the information that you want to hear, and it's going to make you make a bad choice. And because of that bad choice, you can end up losing out on all kinds of things, and maybe even the grace of God. And we're going to see that here. I don't know if we're going to get too far, but we're going to see that because of the choice that these Israelite leaders are trying to make today, they're going to end up losing out on the grace of God, not only for themselves, but for future generations. So that's why I say, number 7, you have to choose wisdom. So then the next line, so they went to him and said, asked him, hey, because your boys are making these bad choices and they turn their back on God, now we want to make a bad choice and turn our back on God. So when they did that, then Samuel got upset. He got upset. So he went to God. But watch what God told him. And this is why I say this is important. Watch what God told him. So he got upset. He was upset with the request, and he went to God, and the Lord told him this, said, do as they say. The Lord replied, and get this, because it's important. He said, for it is me they are rejecting, not you. They don't want me to be their king any longer. Ever since I brought them from Egypt, they have continually forsaken me and followed other gods, and now they are giving you the same treatment. So what does he say? They not rejecting you, they rejected me. They rejected me. What up, man? What up, Danny? Appreciate you being here, my brother. I hope everything good on y'all end. I hope y'all had a wonderful Christmas. So number 8 is this. So again, he said, they are rejected. He said, they don't want me to be their king. They are rejecting me, and they're not rejecting you. They don't want me to be their king. So it's not you. He said, even though you're upset, you got a right to be upset. You're a man of God. You have compassion for my things. You know what I'm saying? You are a man of God. He said, but don't be upset. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. So number 8, this is something that number 8. And again, this is another very important point. These next 2 are very important. This is a very important point. Number 8 is this. You have to choose salvation. You have to choose salvation. Salvation is a choice that you have to make. You have to say something that people don't know. And this is y'all know I go out soul winning. I talk about soul winning all the time. And this next one gonna get why I'm always bringing up soul winning when we make this point number 9. But you have to choose salvation. One of the things that I always have to make sure I help people understand when I'm out there and I'm sharing the gospel with them. I led a little young lady to the Lord this past Saturday, and I had to make sure she understood the Saturday before. I led like 12 young people to the Lord. And if you only go to church, if you don't listen to pastors, most of the churches teach you that if you do bad things, God is going to send you to hell. Or if you do bad things, it's because the devil got a hold of you and the devil is trying to send you to hell. But something you have to understand, God is not the one that sends you to hell. The devil is not the one that sends you to hell. You actually make the choice whether you want to go to heaven or hell. And we don't realize that. We don't realize we have that power. God doesn't have that power over us, and the devil don't have that power over us. That's what free will is. God has given us the choice. By giving us free will, he has given us the power to make the choice whether we want to go to heaven or hell or not. If you go through that door called death, and you don't see them pearly gates on the other side, you don't see the face of Jesus on the other side, it's because you decided that you didn't want to be there. We make the decision on where we're going to spend eternity or not. You choose whether you're going to go to heaven or you're going to hell. Go to hell. Because you got to think about it. Over in Revelation chapter 3, I think it's chapter 3, verse 9. I know it's Revelation 3. I think it's verse 9. But the Lord says this, and this is one I use all the time when I'm sharing the gospel. He said, behold, excuse me, y'all. He said, behold, I stand at the door and knock. Any man that hears my voice and open up to me, I will come in and I will sup with them and them with me. But you notice what he said? He said, behold, I'm at the door knocking. Why is he knocking? Because you have the choice whether you want to let him in or not. And that's why I always explain to people, that's what salvation is. Salvation is that moment that you make that choice that you're going to let the Lord come into your heart and be your Savior. That's what salvation, the moment that you realize that you are a sinner, and because of that sin, you're supposed to die and go to hell, but because God loved you, he sent Jesus to die for you. So if you make that choice to accept him as your Savior, let him into your heart, you get to go to heaven. But you have to make that choice. It can't be something that you're doing because grandma told you you can do. I know me and Miss Alicia, we had a discussion about somebody in her family, and she was like, no, I'm worried about it. And I told her, all we can do is pray for her. Hopefully one day she'll come around, but she has to make that choice. No matter how bad her mom, and I know her mom is a good, godly person, and I know her mom wants her to be there with her when she go through the door called death. But the only thing her mama can do is pray for her. And if she comes to her mom and say, hey, I want to make that decision, she can help her. That's all she can do. You know what I'm saying? But that's all we can do. They have to make the choice. We have to make the choice whether we want to go to heaven or hell or not. We all have to make that choice. It can't be something like when I talk to people and when I'm knocking on doors, I always ask them, first of all, they going to church. And then depending on how, they answer that question, I always ask them about their salvation. And any of y'all, matter of fact, both of y'all that's on here, I met you doing soul winning, so you know exactly what I'm saying is true. And a lot of people, I say, they say, well, I think I am. Or some people like, oh, yeah, for sure. And when people say, yeah, oh, yeah, I made the decision before, well, I always ask them then, like, when, do you remember? Give me your testimony. Like, where were you at when you made the decision? And a lot of time I get people, they're like, oh, well, I was a kid and I was in church. I was 4 or 5 years old, 6, 7 years old. I was a kid in church and I ended up doing it. So whenever the people say that, I always ask them, I said, now, when you made the decision, did you make it from your own heart? Because the Lord was talking to your heart, or did you do it because maybe your grandma, especially when they're young and at that age? I always ask them, did you do it because your grandma told you to do it, or did you do it because the preacher told you need to do it, or did you do it because your friends were doing it, or did you do it because the Lord has spoke to your heart and you felt in your heart this was the decision you need to do? And some people like, oh, yeah, I remember, because I remember I was talking to this one lady a couple of weeks ago. She's like, oh, yeah, I definitely did. She said, matter of fact, I was white-knuckling the bench trying to keep from going up there because I didn't want to go up there. She said, but after a while, I couldn't fight it, and I went on up, and I ended up getting saved. I said, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. But you got to understand, it's a choice that you have to make. It's a choice. You can't push it on anybody. You can't enforce anybody that's doing it. You can't trick them into doing it. They got to want to make that choice for themselves. And there's a lot of times, man, there's a lot of people, again, I go so in every weekend, there's a lot of people I come across that know they're not saved and they've chosen not to get saved. Matter of fact, this very weekend, we was out knocking on doors. I was down in Dixon, in the projects in Dixon, where I met my boy Anthony at. I was down there knocking on doors, and came across this guy, and it was cold. I'm telling you, it was frigid. It was cold, but I still had to go get my soul winning. There's a choice I made. I'm still gonna get my soul winning in, and I'm glad I did because I ended up needing another young lady to the Lord. But I knocked on the door. Guy came to the door, got to talking to him, asked him was he going to church. He said, no, not really, not a church person. And I'm like, okay, church is important, but going to heaven is more important. God forbid something was to happen. Do you know for sure you go to heaven? He said, no, I probably won't go. I said, why not? I said, are you not saved? He said, no, I'm not. I said, oh, and when somebody say they're not saved, they know that, because some people just don't know they're not saved. So when somebody say they're not saved, they know they ain't saved. I'm like, and I always ask them, I'm like, is there a reason why? Like, is there a particular, because a lot of people, Well, I found most people have a particular reason why they didn't, like I said, maybe something happened, some bad influence, bad experience at church. 9 times out of 10, people have an exact reason. When they're not saved, they say something like that, they're not saved. There's a reason why they're not saved. So I asked, I said, man, is there a particular reason why? He said, nah, man, I ain't into the whole Jesus thing. And apparently at some point he had a 10-year-old daughter. I can't remember. Actually, I don't know if it was a boy or girl, but he said a 10-year-old child. He had a child that died at the age of 10. And then he had some other things that happened to him over his life as well. So he like, because of those things, because the Lord took, and he even said, because the Lord took my child, and because the Lord allowed this to happen, then I just chose not to get saved. I'm not going to put my faith in somebody that allowed it to happen. So he let the things of this world make him influence the decision, the choice that he made to stay unsaved. You know what I'm saying? And I said, you're not worried about what's going to happen when you go through that door called death? And I said, because you're going to see God on the other side, and he's going to explain to you why he took that child, but you're going to have to explain to him why you rejected his gospel. And he's like, man, he said, yeah, I'm probably going to have to deal with it. But, it's a choice there, but I'm just not into it. And I said, you know what? I'll tell you what. Here you go. Here's a card. I said, here's one of my cards. I said, if you're willing, maybe the Lord touch your heart. I said, I pray the Lord will touch your heart later on. I said, but if you're willing, you can read the back, and that's the gospel right there, and it can tell you exactly what you need to know to get to heaven. I said, I pray the Lord to give you the wisdom to make the choice to read that card before it's too late. I said, because then I kind of gave him, I said, because I understand where you're coming from. I said, I've had a rough life. I said, if you're ever interested, I can share my testimony with you. I've had a rough life, and because of that rough life, I just chose at one point to turn my back on God. I said, but thank God that he showed me I was wrong, and he showed me he was real, and he called me back into the fold. I said, but you got to make that choice. And he's like, well, he said, man, I think about it. And he took my card and he closed the door. And that was it. He made a choice. So I prayed that he'll get saved. But if he want to keep this spite he has in his heart toward the Lord, because he's had some bad things, because he's not willing to accept his all things, so he's letting this spite in his heart because he's had a few things happen to him, keep him from getting saved. Then when he go through that door called death, and he have to see, he don't get to see the Jesus on the other side, he made that choice that he wanted to go to hell. It's not because God sent him there. You know what I'm saying? He made that choice that he wanted to go to hell. And that's what we have to understand. We have to choose salvation. Salvation don't just happen. You got to make that choice that you want to be saved, and you have the power to make that choice. That's why God gave us free will. So many people really believe that the devil tricked them into hell, or God sends them to hell, when in reality it's their decisions that they made that determines whether they get to go to heaven or hell or not. We have to make that choice. The day I figured it out, because, Samuel, he's upset. And again, he's taking it personal. And it's easy to take it personal. Because I'm telling y'all something, man. Soul winning is like one of the most awkward things, the weirdest thing there is. I mean, you randomly knocking on somebody's door, completely not expecting you to come by at all. They not expecting you, and they definitely expect nobody to come by talking about Jesus. And you knocking on doors on basically, hey, Jesus. It's weird. It can get downright. Sometimes it's really good. Sometimes it's just downright awkward. And it's a hard thing to do. You have to get over your fear of rejection. That's a lot of time why a lot of people don't go, because of their fear of rejection. But we got to understand, yes, we might get rejected, but they're not rejecting us. He's not rejecting. When that guy not talked to the guy about being saved this past weekend, and he said he didn't want to get saved, he wasn't rejecting me. He was rejecting one I was representing. He was rejecting God. And that's what God is telling Samuel right here. That, look, man, I know you're upset. Yeah, you got a right to be upset, but you got to understand they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. So don't get upset about it. This is how they've been doing since I brought them out of Egypt. They've been trying their best to reject me. Because y'all remember, because I'm reading actually over in Numbers and all that right now. How many times did they complain when the Lord had took them out of the wilderness? They didn't have no water, so they got upset and started complaining against Aaron and Moses. Man, why did y'all even bring us out here in this wilderness? Y'all want us to die. It ain't no food out here. We're tired of hearing this man eating this manna. And there was even a couple of times where they had tried to organize and actually make them a new leader to take them back to Egypt. Because they was choosing to go back to the oppression and the suffering, rather than just walk on the path that God had for them. They was choosing that. We choose that. We choose whether we get to go to heaven or hell or not. And so if you get it, like I said, you go through that door called death, and you don't see Jesus on the other side, don't get mad at Jesus. Jesus didn't do that to you. Because I guarantee you at some point, you had the opportunity to make the choice to get to heaven. Because over in Titus, I think it's Titus chapter 2, verse 11, it says the grace of God that brings about salvation has appeared unto all men. Which means at some point in your life, you had the opportunity, you seen the grace that brings about salvation, and you had the opportunity to accept that grace, and you chose to reject it. So you have to choose salvation. Salvation don't just happen to you because you go to church all the time. Salvation don't just happen to you because you read your Bible all the time. It don't just happen because you pray all the time. It happens because you make a choice that you want to accept Jesus Christ your Savior, and you open up your heart and let Jesus Christ in. You have to choose salvation. You have to choose if you want to be in heaven or hell or not. And if you one of my fellow soul winning buddies, one of those that get out there and go soul winning, and when you go soul winning, you knock on that door, you try to tell people about the gospel, and they don't want to hear it. You got to realize they're not rejecting you; they're rejecting the Lord. And like I said, the day that when I finally went soul winning, because before I finally got that, I had to get that. And honestly, if you're gonna soul win, you have to understand that. Because you're going to take it so personal. You know, you're always going to take it as, am I doing something wrong? Am I going to the right place? Am I making bad decisions? And it's not you. It's them rejecting God. And the day that I figured that out, the first day I finally got that and understood that, that was the day my soul winning really took off. You know, and the day, and what happened was, I'll never forget, I was down in the project in Nashville. And at this point, I had been out soul winning for months, for like maybe 2 or 3 months before this happened to me. But I was go with Brother John. I never would do the talking. I would go with my pastor, and he just did all the talking. You know what I'm saying? I was just with him or whatever. And what happened was one day, we was out in the projects, and I was with this other guy. His name was Preston. And I was with Brother Preston. And like I said, Brother Preston was the guy that I went to. He was experienced soul winner. So when he go out, he share the gospel. I mean, he's just like butter. Same with my pastor. He had been doing so long that when he went out and shared the gospel, it was like butter. So I figured like, oh, well, because they got their stuff in such good order, because, you know what I'm saying, because the way they presented it, that's why people are accepting it, kind of thing. That's what I kind of figured. That was my thinking. So what happened was, sorry, y'all, I'm getting the burps for some reason today. So what happened was, I was out there, I'm with Preston, and he had knocked on the door, and we was, like I said, we was together, and like I said, he was the talking partner, I was the silent partner. So he knocked on his door, and the people came to the door, and they wasn't saved. So he started telling them how to get saved. Well, just so happened, the doors were so close that the next door neighbor heard the knock, and they thought maybe somebody was knocking on their door as well. So they came to the door as well. So Brother Preston was already talking to them. He can talk to them too. So he told me, he said, hey, John, why don't you go talk to them? And I was like, okay, at this point, I had never shared the gospel with anybody. You know what I'm saying? Brother Bob doing good, man. I was messing with him last night. He's still doing good. And so I had never shared the gospel with anybody. And again, so this is my first time. So I'll go over to the door. I talk to this neighbor, and I'm like, hey, I'm from the church or whatever. We out telling people about the Lord. Are you, I think I asked them, at the time I couldn't remember because it was my first time, so I can't remember if I asked them if they going to church, but I do remember asking them if they were saved. And the person at the door said no. So I'm like, okay, well, would you like to know what you need to like to hear the gospel and know what you need to know and make the decision to get to heaven, so you can get know what you need to know so you can make a decision whether you want to go to heaven or not? And the person said yes. And I was like stuck. I was like, wow, so I'm like, okay. So I just took the card, and I just basically just read out the card, and I had bumbled and stumbled. Because it was my very first time. I was nervous as all get out. I bumbled and stumbled through the gospel, and I tried to use examples, and it wasn't, and I didn't use them correctly. And I was like, man, ain't no way this person gonna get saved, because I missed it. It was so, like I said, it wasn't organized. It wasn't smooth at all. It was just bumbling and stumbling through the gospel. But guess what? When I got through with that last point, and I asked that person, would he like the Bible said to get saved? You know what he said? Yes. So I'm like, okay, so bowed my head, and again, reading off the card, just prayed the sinner's prayer, because at the bottom of the card, it was the sinner's prayer. Prayed and had the guy put his hand on my Bible, prayed the sinner's prayer, the guy got saved. And that's when it finally hit me. It's not my presentation. It's not me, my charisma. It's not my pizzazz that get people saved. It's them making the choice that they want to be saved. It's them, it's the Holy Spirit working on their heart and them making the choice to listen to that Holy Spirit and make that decision to get saved. And when I finally, when it clicked right then and there, because like I said, with the way I presented it and the way I bumbled stomach through it, it ain't no way that person just got saved if it was based on me. But because it wasn't based on me, it was based on them making that choice that they wanted to be saved, the young man got saved. And guess what? I went around the corner from after that. I had a newfound confidence in my soul winning. And that day, y'all, the first day I ever led somebody to the Lord, that day I led 11 people to the Lord. Because I finally understood it wasn't about me. You know, it was about me. It wasn't about me. It was about God. And those people, if they wanted to get saved, the Spirit had worked in their heart, they was going to get saved. And if the Spirit hadn't worked on their heart, or it worked in their heart and they just still chose not to get saved, they're not rejecting me, they're rejecting God. And that's what he was telling Samuel. Look, I know you're upset, and you got a right to be upset because you understand the significance of this decision, this choice that they're making, but it's not on you. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. It's not because you went to them wrong. It's not because you came at them in the wrong way, and none of that. It's strictly because they are rejecting me. Yeah, so don't feel bad about it. They're rejecting me. So again, number 8, you got to realize you have to choose salvation. It's not something that just happens. You know what I'm saying? It's not something because you go to church and be a good person and give money to the poor and all that. That's not salvation. You have to choose that you want to be saved. You have to choose to open up your heart and let Jesus Christ into your life. That's why he says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. Any man that open up to me and come in, any man that opens up to me, I will come in and sup with him and him with me. And that's why he's knocking, because he didn't say I'm at the door, you better let me in. He didn't say get prepared, I'm at the door. He said I'm at the door knocking. And the only reason why somebody knocks on your door is because they want to gain access through that door. And the only way they can gain access through that door is if you make the choice that you want to let them in. So number 8, you have to choose salvation. You choose where you will spend your eternity. You are the one that choose whether you go to heaven or hell. And that's why it's so important to have wisdom in your decision, because that's the most important decision that you'll ever make in your life. So that's number 8. So I'm going to go through one more. It's already 8:30. I'm going to go through one more to finish out this little paragraph here. And then I'm going to stop here for this tonight. I told you I was going to probably be another one. Might be 2, but I'll probably finish up, be able to finish it up next week. So after that happened, of course, Samuel's upset. He understands the decision they're making. He understands how big of a decision this is. He realized that they're making the wrong choice. But the Lord said, hey, you got to let them make their choice. You know, that's on them. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting me. So watch what the Lord tell them. This next one. This is going to be my next point. He said, now they are giving you the same. He said, ever since they don't want me to be, I'm sorry, let me just read it back from the beginning. He said, he said, do as they say. The Lord replied, for it is me they are rejecting, not you. They don't want me to be their king any longer. Ever since I brought them from Egypt, they have continually forsaken me and followed other gods. And now they are giving you the same treatment. So here we go. He said, so do as they ask, but solemnly warn them about how a king would treat them. So Samuel passed on the Lord's warning to the people. This is how a king will treat you, Samuel said. So number 9, and again, I already been kind of talking about it, but this is the official point. Number 9 is this. You have to choose to warn others of the horror of dying unsaved. You have to choose if you're going to go out soul winning or not. You got to choose if you're going to give them that warning. You know what I'm saying? And y'all know y'all hear me talk about soul winning all the time, and y'all probably get tired of me talking about soul winning. But honestly, I ain't gonna lie. I do it because I want to guilt you into not if you're not doing it. If you're out here and you're not doing it, if you out here right now, if you're watching this right now, and you're saved, and you got saved because you understood you was a sinner, and you understood that what was going to be waiting on you on the other side of that door called death because you did save, and you out here, you saved, and you know people in your world that's unsaved, shame on you. Shame on you. Because what you're supposed to do, you have to choose to give them a warning. You have to at least warn the people. Now, if you tell them and they don't accept it, then that's not on you. But if you, as a matter of fact, let's go over to where I got Ezekiel chapter 3. I'm gonna tell you what God says about that. So you have to choose if you're gonna warn the people, because you see, he told them, said, warn the people. No, warn. He said, no, do what they say, but before you do it, warn them what's gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? They telling you they don't want me to be their God no more. They telling me they want to be like the world. They want a worldly king instead of this godly king, and tell them they can have it, but this is what's going to happen. Give them the warning of what's going to come into play, what's going to happen. Matter of fact, he telling them, warn them of the destruction that they're about to bring upon themselves. That's what the Lord told them. So again, and it says Samuel passed on the Lord's warning. So Samuel made the choice. All right, I'm going to warn them just like the Lord told him. And I'm going to tell you what the Lord said about that. Now in Ezekiel chapter 3, verses 17 through 19. Ezekiel chapter 3, 17 through 19. This is what the Lord says. He said, Son of man, I have appointed you as a watchman for Israel. Whenever you receive a message from me, pass it on to the people immediately. Now, if I warn the wicked, saying you are under the penalty of death, but you fail to deliver the warning, they will die in their sins. And listen to this, y'all. He said, now, if I tell the people that they're under the penalty of death, and you fail to give it to them, you don't go out and tell them this, and they die in their sins. He said they will die in their sins. And look what he said, the next line, and I will hold you responsible. Think about that. God is saying that if you're saved, and you know you saved, and you know there's unsaved people in your world, and you're not telling them what they need to know to get saved, at least giving them a warning or giving them a tracker telling them what they need to know to get saved, then when those people die in their sins, then he's going to hold you responsible for it. So think about that, y'all. Especially y'all want to throw that Christian tag around. Guess what? It's some responsibility to come with that. But watch what he says. He said, if they die in their sins, I will hold you responsible, demanding your blood for theirs. So you know what I'm saying? So then he says the next one, he said, but if you warn them and they keep on sinning and refuse to repent, then they will die in their sin, but you would have saved your life because you did what you were told to do. As a matter of fact, the King James Version said, yet if thou warn the wicked and he turned not from his wickedness, nor from his wicked way, he shall die in his iniquity, but thou hast delivered thy soul. You see what I'm saying? He said, but thou hast delivered thy soul. So you see what I'm saying? So God, according to God, if you're saved and you know the gospel, you know the reason why you got saved, you know what's waiting on that other side of that door called death, because if you go through that door unsaved and you're not telling nobody, then guess what? You're a scoundrel. You know what I'm saying? And God is going to call you. He's going to call you. You're going to have to pay for that. Again, he said, I will hold you accountable. He said, if you want, he said, I will hold you responsible, demanding your blood for theirs. See? So that's why I'm always talking about soul winning, because I'm trying to help y'all understand how important that is. You know, not only for the other, but even for yourself. Because if you know people in your world is unsaved, which we all know some unsaved people in our world, and you're not trying to tell them about the gospel, then guess what? The Lord said he's going to hold you responsible for that. Now, that don't necessarily mean you're going to go to hell because they went to hell, but you're going to lose some rewards. You're going to have some stuff you have to answer for. You know, instead of having your mansion in mansion, you might have your cot in the corner. You're going to definitely going to lose some rewards, but you're going to have to give an account for, you spent all that time hanging out with such and such. You knew such and such was unsaved, and you're supposed to be a Christian. Why didn't you tell them? You see what I'm saying? That's why God saves us. God don't save us just so we can, my preacher always say, sit around on our blessed assurance. He saved us so we can go out and tell others about it. You know, it's an example, I'm getting this from our preacher. You know, it's just like if you had cancer. And you had cancer, and a doctor come in and said, you got cancer because of this it's terminal, you're going to die. You're going to die because of this cancer. And then through you leave the hospital, and some guy come up to you and like, hey, I got these bottle pills. And if you take one of these pills, it'll cure you of your cancer. He said, here you go. He's got a whole bottle of them. There's 1,000 in the bottle. He's got a whole bottle of 1,000 of them. All you need is one. He said, so when you take it and it heals you, go out there and give it to other people. You know what I'm saying? So they can be healed as well. And instead of you taking it and distributing it to everybody else, dying from cancer, you just take it and put it in your coat and you go hide it. What kind of person? You'll be a horrible person if you did something like that. You sit there and got a cure that'll keep somebody from dying, and instead of, going out and give it to everybody, you selfishly keep it to yourself. That will make you a horrible individual. But guess what? When you're saved, and you know you saved, and you know there's people in your world that's unsaved, and you're not turning out there, going out there and telling them the gospel, and guess what? You're a horrible individual. Same difference. It's same difference. That's why soul winning is so important. But you have to choose that you want to. You have to choose that you're going to go out soul winning, because like I said, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but it's so vital that you go out. It's a lot of work. Again, I was talking about this weekend. I chose to go out this weekend. It was frigid. I mean, I had my long pants on. I had my shirt on. I had my sweater on. Then I had my big coat on. I had my hat on. I had my gloves on. And I was still freezing. Man. I so bad didn't want to be out there. And honestly, I said, man, I'm hoping I'm going to stay out for an hour today. I mean, but I still was going to go out. Normally I like to stay out for an hour and a half. I'm probably only going to be able to get out again in an hour today. And I just pray to God to use this hour, which he did. I came across the one guy I was telling y'all about earlier. He said he wasn't saved, didn't want to get saved. But I went down the street, knocked on a few more doors. I guess about 4 or 5 doors later, came across this young lady. Turns out that yesterday was her, the day before, Friday, was her birthday. And then, of course, this was Saturday. And then the next day was Christmas, which was Jesus' birthday. So I you know what I'm saying? So I just got to talking to her. I'm like, man, what better way to celebrate your birthday and Jesus' birthday than accepting the greatest gift ever given to the mankind when Jesus came down? That's why we celebrate his birthday, him coming down. And got to talk to this young lady, and she said she wanted to get saved, and she ended up getting saved. But see, I had to make a choice to go out there so I can do that. I could have chose to stay at my house. I wanted to stay at my house, to be honest. It was, like I said, it was frigid Saturday when I was out there. And the thing is, too, I go more toward the evening, so it was right before, right as it was getting dark. So it was even colder then. I probably should have got my butt out and went out a little earlier, but I had some stuff going on. I didn't get out early as I wanted to. But I still went. I still chose to go. And it's important that you choose to go, because if you don't choose to go out soul winning, if you don't choose to go out there, and really we call it soul winning. I saw this one guy that comes out of church and preaches every once in a while, and he actually have a book, and it was called A Passion for Souls. And he said in his book, we call it soul winning, but in reality it's soul warning. And that's what we're doing. We're going out there and we're warning people of what's to come if they go through that door called death. We warning them that, hey, you're a sinner and there's a penalty you're going to have to pay for that sin, and that sin is hell. We're warning them. We're not really winning them, we're warning them. So he said, really, even though we call it soul winning, it's really soul warning. But guess what? You either way they go, you still have to choose that you want to go out there. And a lot of people choose not to go because of pride, or they're embarrassed, or it's too hard, or it's too cold, or that fear of rejection, whatever it is that's keeping you from making that decision to go. But still, you got to realize you're hurting yourself because you're not. You hurt yourself because the Lord said, if I give you a message, which if you've accepted the gospel, you have the message, because that's why you accepted the gospel, because somebody brought it to you. So you know what's waiting on the other side of the door called death, and you're not telling people about it, then that makes you a scoundrel. You know what I'm saying? And it's important, but you have to choose that you want to go, and that's an important decision to make, because if you don't go, then a lot of people won't hear. That's what I love my ministry. I go the church, they go here in Waverly. They've been doing it for years. I don't. The only way I end up going in Waverly is when something happened and I don't have time to go. I don't have the time to go to my usual spots. But I try to travel at least 45 minutes away from here, because I know I'm going to areas that other people haven't been. That's my choice. That's why y'all hear me talk about I'll be in Dixon, or I'll be in Paris, or, I'm all over the place. I'll be in Nashville. I've been everywhere. I'm in Erin and Brewston and, I can't even name Camden. I can't even name all the places I've been soul winning at. Even when I was on the town, I went soul winning in Texas. You know what I'm saying? I try to go because that's my choice. I choose to go because I know people need to hear that. As a matter of fact, Romans chapter 10, verse 14 tells us that. And this is why it's so important for you to go soul winning. Because Romans chapter 10, verses 11 through 15. And I'm actually going to read the King James version on this, because the way they translate it, I think it take away the power. I like the wording of the King James version. So in Romans chapter 10, verses 11 through 15, he says this. He says, for the scripture said, whosoever believeth on him shall not be ashamed. He said, for there is no difference between the Jew and the Greek. For the same Lord over all is rich unto all that call upon him. For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. And that's one of the verses I always use for the gospel. But watch what he said after this. He said, but how then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in whom they have not heard? And how should they hear without a preacher? See, you might be that preacher that give them the opportunity to hear the Lord so they can get saved. And I thank the Lord, man, these last 5 weeks have been phenomenal. I've been going through it over the last 5 weeks, man. My wife has lost her job. Both of my sons lost their job. My main truck went down with a major issue. Transmission went out on it. I hit a deer, and my two auxiliary vehicles, which already is barely hanging on, I hit a deer in one night, and then my son hit a deer in the other one the next night. I mean, I've been going through it for these last 5-6 weeks, but guess what? I still been going out. I still been making a choice to not let that get me down. I still been making the choice to continue in this ministry. I still been making the choice to be here every Monday since that's been happening. I still made the choice to go out sowing every Saturday. And every Saturday for the last 5 weeks since I've been going through this the devil been attacking me these last 5 weeks. Every single Saturday for the last 5 weeks, I've led somebody to the Lord, at least one person to the Lord for the last 5 weeks in a row. That's the longest streak I've ever been on. I've never had that happen before. Normally, I usually once, like I go out, there's 4 Saturdays in a week. Maybe, if I'm having a good month, so to speak, I know 2 of those Saturdays I'll lead somebody to the Lord. But I've never had 5 straight weekends in a row where I've been able to lead at least one person to the Lord. And the only reason why I've been able to do that, not because I'm working so hard, not because I'm so great at what I'm doing, it's all because I've chose to go to where God has sent me, and I've chose to go out and knock on doors regardless of the circumstances. Regardless if I'm going through all this stuff and my vehicles are down and things not looking good, I'm still choosing to go do God's work. Regardless if it's -4 outside and there's ice and snow on the ground, I'm still choosing to go out and do God's work. And because I've chose to go out and do God's work, there's other people that was chose to make that decision, accept Him as Savior. And over the last 5 weeks, like I said, I've led 17 people to the Lord over the last 5 weeks. That's twice in the last 5. I've led more. I think last year altogether over the whole year, I think I led like 36 people to the Lord. So I've led over half in the last 5 weeks. I've led over half of the people to the Lord in the last 5 weeks than I almost have an entire year. At least half. I'm saying it wrong. So half of what I led to the Lord over the last year, I've already done within the last 5 weeks. See what I'm saying? Why? Because I'm choosing to continue to go out and do the work. I'm choosing to go out there and be that vessel that God can use to bring others to Him. You have to choose that. You have to choose to warn others. If you are saved, if you are saved, you got saved because somebody warned you. And really, you are obligated to go out and warn others. Again, you don't have to do what I do. Just keep you some tracks in your pocket. If you can't talk, if you feel awkward about talking or trying to, you don't really have the linguistic skills to share the gospel with others, just at least give them tracks. I do that too, because sometimes when I can't share the gospel, I just give them tracks. Hey, read this when you get a chance, tell you how to get to heaven. But you are obligated because, again, what it said in Ezekiel, if you see a man on the way to destruction, and if you know that they're unsaved, then they're on their way to destruction. You know what's waiting on the other side of the go called death if they're unsaved. If you see that person and you don't warn them, then what he say? He said, I'm going to require your blood for theirs. They're going to die in their sins, but I'm going to require their blood for your blood for theirs. He said, but if you do warn them and then they continue on and don't get saved, then that's on them. You freed your own soul. But we have an obligation. If you know somebody's on that path of destruction, then you have an obligation to at least give them a warning on what's waiting on them at the end of that path if they don't change their ways. If you don't, then guess what? Their blood is going to be on your head, according to Ezekiel chapter 3, verses 17 through 19. So we're going to stop there for tonight, y'all. We got through 5 of them tonight. Those doing pretty good. But I hope these are important. Like I said, again, I don't want to rush through them because I want y'all to see how important it is to make these choices. Like I know a lot of people, this is the day after the holiday. I hope a lot of people had a good Christmas. I don't have as many in here as I used to, but they got to choose they want to be here. And most people may be choosing just they're going to watch it later on because they got some family things going on. I don't know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? But I'm choosing to still be here. Whether I got one person here with me right now, whether it's this one person or whether it's 100 people, I still got to choose to do my part. And you have to choose to do your part. And all the choices that we make influence the choices that other people make. So I choose to be here. I choose to be diligent. I choose to be faithful. And I pray that because of these choices I'm making, that others will watch this video later on and they choose to let this wisdom soak in their heart and they choose to do better as far as building their relationship with the Lord. So I thank y'all for joining me tonight. And as always, I hope this lesson will help you. God willing, next Monday, I might finish. I don't know exactly. I got like 6, 7 more points. I might be able to finish next week. I don't know. Depends on how far deep I get into it. If I get so deep, I might just go ahead and finish it, and y'all just have to bear with me for a little while. But God willing, next Monday night, I'll be back and to finish, either finish up this lesson or continue another installment of this lesson of the choices and how important it is to have wisdom in the decision you make. But of course, as always, if there's anything that you want me to talk about that I haven't talked about already, any stories that you want me to cover that I haven't covered already, or anything that you dear in your heart that you love me to do a lesson on, please inbox me and let me know, and I will definitely try to work that into my lesson plans. Keep sharing the videos, telling others about the videos as well. My stuff is always public, open to the public, is always free. Kind of thing, because I just want this to get out so it can help other people. So I pray that y'all continue to tag people, tell people about it, do whatever you got to do to get these words out so others can be blessed by the wisdom that I'm sharing here with you guys tonight. And of course, as always, just like we was talking about the last 2 points, if you're not sure about salvation, please reach out. That's why I always make that announcement. I'm trying to give you a warning. If you're not 100% sure, you're watching this video, and you're not 100% sure if you was to die, you used to go to heaven, please reach out to me and let me know so I can schedule some time to go over this gospel with you and hopefully give you the warning and the wisdom you need to make the decision so you can know the Lord before you go to that door called death. And as always, reach out to me if you need any kind of spiritual counseling, don't understand something about the Bible, whatever it is, please reach out to me and let me know, and I will schedule some time to talk to you and just share whatever wisdom the Lord has given me. I will share it with you and hopefully help you make a decision that'll help you get closer to the Lord. And as always, if y'all want to go catch some of my old videos or want to just go back and watch one of these, here you go. This is my YouTube page. I usually the Sunday after I do the video, the following Sunday, I put them on there. And right now my page is current. All my videos, my videos are on my YouTube page. So if you want to check that out, go to youtube.com, God's Servant / Lost Sheep Ministry with a space in between each one. Go ahead and subscribe. That way you'll always be alerted whenever I put a new video on. But again, it's just a lot easier to go there and look up the videos instead of scrolling through my Facebook page because I get tagged in so much stuff. So again, with that being said, y'all, I pray this lesson help you. I pray it help you see how important it is to have wisdom when you make decisions. I pray it help you see that your decision influence others. And I pray it help you see how important it is to make the right decision, because you never know what direction that decision you make is going to lead you in, but you also don't know what direction that decision you make is going to lead other people in as well. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pray and I'm going to get out of here. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, thank you so much for watching over us tonight. Thank you so much once again for all those that chose to be here tonight with me, Lord. And I know it's some that usually watch it later on as well. But I just thank you for the faithfulness of the people that has been a part of this ministry. And I thank you for the encouragement they give me so I can continue to go forth doing your work. I really thank you for this message that you gave, Lord, the wonderful message on the importance of choices and having wisdom in our choices. And of course, we know I didn't talk about it a lot, but you are the beginning of wisdom. The fear of you is the beginning of wisdom. So wisdom comes from you. So I pray that everybody's praying for wisdom. They're praying to have a close relationship with you so you can guide them in the direction they need to go so they can do the work that you have for them to do. And I ask you just watch over us as we finish up this night tonight, Lord. Keep us all safe. Let these words that were spoken here tonight, this wisdom, help them accept that wisdom. Because that's one of the things of wisdom. They have to accept the wisdom. Just because the wisdom was given don't mean it's always heeded or it's always accepted, Lord. So I pray you help them accept the wisdom that was shared here tonight, and they will take it into their hearts and use these words that were shared tonight to continue to build a relationship with you so they can do the things that you have for them to do so they may honor and glorify your name as well. I pray you just continue to watch over the ministry, continue to help it grow, prosper, reach out to the community, change the lives of others, capture the lost souls of men. I pray you be with all those. I know a lot of people are going to be traveling back home because the holidays are now over. I pray that if they're still traveling, they make it back home safely. And if they haven't traveled, please let them get there, get their vehicles mechanical soundness, and get them their traveling mercies as they travel. Watch over us, Lord, as we end this year. Pray this year can end on a good note, Lord. And I pray that next year begin on a even better note. I know that this nation and this world as a whole turn its heart back towards you. Be with all my family and friends, keep them safe and protected. Be with this ministry, continue to help it grow, prosper, reach out to the community, change the lives of others, capture lost souls of men, and continue to use me, my family, and my ministry members in a wonderful way, Lord, that we can honor and glorify your name, accurately be your kingdom, and turn the hearts of this world back to you. Be with all those that are suffering and sick and shut in. Keep your healing hands upon them. But again, give them the wisdom, make the choice to not lose faith in you because of what they're going through. We love you so very much. Thank you for everything. And we pray for the day when the world as a whole will make the choice to humble ourselves, pray, seek your face, and turn from our wicked ways so you can hear from heaven, forgive our sins, and heal our land. Watch over us, Lord. Bring us back to you. But more importantly, use us to honor and glorify your holy name and actively build your kingdom. We love you so very much. Thank you for this night. Thank you for this time. And thank you for this wisdom. And we say this prayer in one of the Son, Jesus' name. Amen. So I appreciate y'all for hanging in there with me tonight, man. Again, I hope y'all had a Merry Christmas. And I guess it'll be next year. Matter of fact, this is the last one. I didn't even think about that. This is the last lesson of the year. So next time I see y'all, God willing, and if I'm back next Monday, it'll be a whole nother year. So I pray that y'all have a good, safe weekend, safe rest of the week, safe rest of the year. And I pray that your goals and your ambition for the year 2023 that's coming up will be to have a close relationship with the Lord and do everything, make the choice you need to make so you can have a close relationship with the Lord and do the things that the Lord will have you to do. So I love you all. Thank y'all for being here tonight. And I pray that y'all continue to pray for me. Well, I hope y'all continue to pray for me, and I continue to pray for y'all as well. So remember, always watch your back and pray. And until next time, I love you all. Peace.